Alright guys, we are going to be looking at some creepy stories on Reddit.
In fact,
or from Reddit.
Yeah. It's the creepiest glitches in the Matrix you can experience.
That people have experienced.
Yeah.
They're going to talk about them.
Yeah. Like it's actual stories from people
that
have experienced glitches in the Matrix. It's very interesting. Creepy. Fun. It's Halloween time.
It is. It's Halloween, so it's time for some creepy stories now. This is actually by Reddit Alien. We're going to be reacting to his video today. Great YouTuber. Some really spoopy stuff. But there should be some funny stuff in here too.
Yeah.
To cleanse your palate. But all right, let's give it a go.
Let's dive right in, brother.
r/askcredit. Posted by user the Dusk Dragon. What is the creepiest glitch in the Matrix you've experienced? 10 years ago, I was returning home from a road trip with 2 friends. I received a phone call from my parents, asking when we would be arriving, and I explained that we were about 25 minutes away. About a minute later we came around a bend. It was a full moon and we could see the reflection from a lake below us, and other than that the road was completely empty. Suddenly everything went completely dark in the car. No lights from the dash or gauges or headlights on the road. The music also stopped, and restarted at the beginning of the CD we were listening to. There was now a vehicle pulled over by the police about 1/4 mile in front of us, that hadn't been there a split second before. I assumed I had dozed off for just a second as it was late. I thought it was still quite peculiar, though. After about a minute, the driver of the car tuned the music all the way down and said, "Did that just happen to anyone else?" The other passenger in the back seat sat forward abruptly and exclaimed, "I thought I just fell asleep." We then realized that the clock in the car was reading an hour later than it just had a minute before. To keep ourselves from freaking out, we decided that the car had possibly had a momentary electrical failure and reset the clock to an odd time, turned off the dash lights, headlights, and gauges, and restarted the CD player. But when we arrived home 25 minutes later, we were 1 hour late. I am missing an hour of my life, and to this day have no idea how it happened. I swear to all the gods that a similar glitch in time happened to me. However, in my case, I was walking into the hallway from my bedroom, and as I got about 6 feet down the hallway, I was seamlessly transported back to the hallway entrance. This was no deja vu event. At least not like I've ever had before or since. I distinctly remember physically walking into my hallway, when I suddenly start from the entrance again. I nearly threw up and shit myself at that very moment. It literally made me sick and scared. I also remember what happened about a second or so before this teleportation glitch. My body started to softly vibrate as if I were some rusty-ass robot. If you can imagine the low-powered vibration of console controllers, but your entire body doing it, that's what it felt like. It lasted for about 2 seconds, right until I teleported. It was somewhat painful to move in that state. I never mentioned it to anyone because, well, obvious reasons.
Well, alright.
So,
we talking teleportation glitches.
So no, that first one is like they just kind of sit in time for an hour, kind of.
Yeah.
In a weird state where they didn't know what was going on. One of them thought they fell asleep, but what?
Well, because if you're not driving, then you obviously are like, oh, maybe I fell asleep and time passed. But when you're the driver, which is what he was, that's why the driver was the one that was like, whoa, what the heck?
Yeah. I bet that hits you different. Mm-hmm. The other person's like, oh, I just fell asleep. But you arrive an hour later than you're supposed to. So he arrived, he said he was going to arrive in 25 minutes. And then he arrived an hour later than 25 minutes, I would assume?
Well, they were an hour and 25 minutes late. They were an hour late, but they were 25 minutes later to get there, so they were an hour and 25 minutes to get to the house. Whenever it should have been just 25 minutes from where they were at.
Oh, and then the hallway thing. Like, you're walking in the hallway. And
All
you
he
get to
did was
end-
describe instant transmission. Goku know how it feels.
Yeah. Shoop. He's gone. Shoop. Shoop. Shoop, shoop.
Okay, Thomas, stop it. All right, we're gonna continue.
When I was a teenager, I had 2 really intense dreams one night. The first one was about an online friend of mine calling me to say she'd broken up with her boyfriend, and I sang a few lines of Seal's Don't Cry to her over the phone. The
Aw.
second dream was finding a real-life friend dead body floating in her bathtub. I didn't think anything of it, up until I logged online that evening, and the online friend came online to tell me her boyfriend broke up with her. I immediately asked if I could call her, and she said no. I remember thinking that it meant something, like I could change it. Not long after, my phone rang, and it was real-life friend from the dream calling me. I was completely freaked at this point, but talked to her normally. She was just talking about school and up until I realized I heard a splash in the background. I asked her, "Are you in the tub?" And when she said yes, I felt like my heart had stopped. I asked her, "What did you do?" She didn't answer me right away, and then after a very long pause, she told me she'd taken an entire bottle of pills, and chased it with mushrooms and vodka. She'd gotten scared waiting for it to hit her. So she called me so she'd hear someone's voice. I hung up and called 911. By the time they got there, she was unconscious, but alive. Today she's a mom to a beautiful little girl, and she's okay. Edit. Whoa. Thank you for the gold. It seems like one of many who've had an experience like that before. Suicide is a horrific thing, and my deepest sympathies for anyone who has been touched by it.
Well,
The frick.
So, he got
he had a deja vu.
a real deja vu.
Yeah.
Like, it hit him. Like, I did this before. I know this, and it was in a dream. This is how I changed this.
Yeah.
So, like, when he got on the computer, he was like, "Hey, can I call you?" She said no. Then he got a phone call from that same person saying, "Hey."
Yeah. Because her boyfriend had broken up with her.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Ooh,
That's
he
some
saved
heavy.
that poor girl.
That's some heavy stuff.
Yeah. But no, look at this one. She now has a beautiful daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Living a happy life.
Living in happy
imagine,
times.
imagine if his dream did come true, man. Well, no, his nightmare. There we go. His nightmare came true. It's not his dream. God, his nightmare came true.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know. Like,
It's
that's a heavy
That's a-
subject.
that's some dark stuff.
Yeah.
That's crazy though.
I have a sleep tracking app on my phone that has a setting for lucid dreaming. It will start saying you're dreaming repeatedly in a woman's voice with a bit of an echo. I was at work one day, when I started hearing the voice randomly every few minutes or so. I checked my phone, and as soon as the screen turned, I woke up in my bed as the sun was rising. A bit freaked out, I went to take a shower. Then on my way to work I started to hear the voice again through the radio. When I turned my car off, a bit freaked out again. I once more woke up in my bed as the sun was rising. This happened about 3 or 4 more times, all at different times of the day. I didn't trust reality for about a week after that and still refused to use that particular setting of the app. You should start using a reality check. Mine is to pinch my nose and attempt to breathe through it. If I can't breathe, it's reality. If I can breathe, it's a dream. The downside to this one is that it looks silly, so my subconscious likes to stick me in situations where I'd be embarrassed to do it. Others that I've heard of. Check a clock, look away, and check again. If it's a dream, the time will change. Attempt to read something. You'll find it between difficult and impossible. Flip a light switch. Light switches tend not to work in dreams. It's like the brain has difficulty re-rendering the scene with the lighting change. Edit. To aggregate the replies I've received. The effectiveness of the clock, reading and light switch tricks seem to vary greatly from person to person. A lot of people have suggested attempting to put the finger of one hand through the palm of the other. In the dream it should pass through. A lot of people have suggested attempting to count and recount your fingers. You should come up with an incorrect number. Others have suggested looking into a mirror. You should appear distorted. Edit 2. The new consensus from replies I'm getting is that looking in a mirror in a dream is a bad idea. Apparently you see some terrifying stuff, especially if the reflection has something to say to you.
Okay.
Okay. So the first guy.
Mm-hmm.
He went through a different reality like 3 or 4 times in one day.
Well,
or in a dream, I guess.
Yeah. He just kept
His dream
was
kept his real life.
He was inceptioning himself. He was actually asleep every single time, and every time he woke up from each layer of his dream.
So theoretically, this guy was living such a boring life. In what I think in my brain, you know, that he does the same thing almost every day when he gets up for work. You know, he takes a shower, get in there, does the same thing every time. You know, he goes to work, he does the same job. Oh, it's like a repetitive job, and so he doesn't think it's different. You know, he's just like, oh, today's the day. You know, today's what I'm doing.
So
and his dream
was able to replicate
it over and over again. And so when he woke up, he was like, okay, it's time for work. You know.
Well, as they were the one person was talking about the different things that you can do in your dream to know if you're in a dream. Whenever it was saying read something.
Yes.
Well, I've had a dream where I was playing Yu-Gi-Oh!
Okay.
And I was dueling you.
Okay.
Okay. And Eric, which was one of our other friends, he was like judging what we were doing, like he was the judge. And I played a card, and it was just a simple card. It was just like Monster Reborn or something, which is Monster Reborn is you play it and you get to bring a monster back from the graveyard, from either person's graveyard. And I played it, and you were like unsure of the ruling of Monster Reborn, and I was like, what are you talking about? And so I picked it up to read it, and I couldn't read it. And then I gave it to Eric, and I said, what does this say? And he was like, and then read it off. And then you read it and went, oh yeah, it's fine. And I was like, why couldn't I read that card? And then I picked up my own card, and it was some effect monster, and I went to read it, and I couldn't read anything it said. Every time I read it, it would immediately, like once I restarted, it would be completely different words, to the point that it was just nothingness.
I tend to just...
So I knew it was a dream.
There's only very few dreams I can remember. But the dreams I remember pretty vividly. Like, you know how people are like, oh, you don't remember your dreams. But if you wake up and that dream is fresh on your mind and you think about it constantly and you make that a pattern in your life, you can remember dreams. Yeah. People just don't think about it because you're like, oh, I wake up, time for life, you know? But like if you wake up from a dream and you're like, that was weird, and then you really think about it, and it's really good to tell someone. If you're able to tell someone what happened in your dream immediately afterwards, they're going to be able to be like, bro, what?
Yeah,
and if you can't piece together a certain part, your brain, sometimes, and I've done it myself, I'll be telling the story, and then I'll be like, oh, this happens there.
Yeah.
Because your brain's like, oh, that's what
I
happens.
remember what happened in the dream.
Yeah,
because
it's really weird.
It's like I want to get to the end of the story that I'm telling you, because the end of the dreams where it was crazy, but as you start to piece together from the beginning, you actually start remembering the rest of the dream. Which actually, Stephen King, that's how he made most of his books, is from his dream. He like remembered his dream and he wrote it down, and then made a book out of it. That. Now that's not every single one of his books, but that's, and I'm sure a lot of authors are probably like that. They had a dream and then they wrote down everything.
I remember M. Night Shyamalan. He made The Visit because he had a dream about an old lady standing in a hallway. And he was like, that's very creepy. And every time now, he's like, he gets really creeped out of, like, older people. Like, he just creeped out of older people. And he's like, definitely standing in hallways. Like, it's just not fun to me. So he just made a movie based on, I guess you could say that's based on a dream. But, like, based on that, oh, crap. Older people are creepy. So,
let's continue here.
Oh, I have a story. One time my wife and I were coming back from a dinner night out. When I opened the door of the house, she was sitting at the computer working. as I usually find her when I get home, nothing unusual. Except she was entering the house with me. I shrugged it off and carried on. We went to bed and I told her that I saw her sitting at the computer, and she goes dead serious and told me that when I opened the door, she saw herself sitting at the computer working. Creepiest thing I've ever experienced. The fact that our neighbor's 2-year-old daughter used to point to the TV when it was off, and tell us that the person on the screen was making scary faces, and that she wanted it to go away, didn't help us getting much sleep that night. So your wife sees herself and doesn't think to mention it until you brought it up later? What the frick is that all about? If I came home and opened the door to find myself sitting on the couch, I'd shit 5 bricks, run away, and never return. Not creepy.
Okay, so yeah, like, okay. Bear in mind these stories may not all be real. You know.
Yeah,
Reddit.
it is Reddit.
It is Reddit. We're just gonna play it on put them all on an even playing field of like, if this is real, this is what you think.
Yeah.
You walk in with your wife. You look over. You see your wife on the couch. You look over at your wife. You look back at the wife. Why don't you say anything then?
Because you have to think, like, I'm with my wife. I must be just, my brain just thought that.
Well, okay. Maybe it was a glance. You know, I don't know the
Exactly.
exact situation.
Exactly. They
you know, maybe it was
probably
like
both walked by real quick because they're heading to whatever room they're headed to.
probably to their room to like get ready for bed.
Yeah, or whatever. And so they just walk by, they just quick glance, and they keep going there like...
And they're both like, okay, it's probably
But see, it would have been different. It would have been different if she said, "Oh, I saw you there." If they both saw each other...
But how do
been...
you look over and see yourself? You know, it's like...
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, she looked over and saw herself. That's what makes it even creepier somehow. I don't know how, but it does.
Yeah. Like, if she saw him, he'd be like, I saw you sitting there. I mean, like, okay, well, they just both thought they saw their partner sitting in it. But she's the one that saw it on the computer. So that's why he was like, okay, whatever. But she's like, oh, I'm always on the computer.
I'm
always on it.
Even whenever I go out,
Let me get on Reddit and tell them the story. That was her topic.
And actually, I wrote this.
Boom! Breaking the Matrix.
All right, well, let's listen to this not so creepy one, apparently.
But so vivid and distinct that I still think about it, years later. I had a, subjectively, long, involved dream where I was a vendor in a fish market. I remember getting up early, dressing, doing a whole morning routine, going to get tea, heading out to the docks, buying fish, loading them in a cart and going to get ice, then haggling for ice, buying some less fresh fish while I was at it, then going to a market to my stall, setting up and selling fish all day. It was so real. I talked to friends, smoked nasty cigarettes, haggled customers, ate lunch, had tea and just lived through the day. At the end of the day, I cleaned up, counted my cash, paid the stall rent, went home, cooked some of the fish I hadn't sold, sling with some veggies and rice that I'd traded for. I drank more tea, relaxed for a while, then drew a hot bath, soaked and smoked some more cigs, then went to bed. The next morning, I woke up refreshed, ready to go down to the docks to buy fresh catch. Except I was in my house, next to my wife, truck parked outside and it was Saturday, no work. My wife and I were getting geared up to go skiing in Oregon and the car was already packed. Weird thing was, in the dream, I was single. And a smoker, I'm not. And the whole long dream had been in fluent Chinese. The effortless kind of fluency that only comes from a lifetime of speaking it. Oh, and I had been Chinese. I'm a big, hairy white dude, somewhat fluent in Spanish and I know a little bit of Russian, but I've never. It was just weird. I've never worked in a fish market. I wonder who I was. I wonder what that was. I was...
He lived the whole life of a Chinese fisher market guy.
Fishmonger.
Yeah. So he's out here. Like, okay, in the moment, you know, I guess he wasn't himself. So he wasn't thinking about it. It was just living my life.
Mm-hmm.
I am single. I smoke. I'm Chinese. I like fish. Here we go. Here's my life. Like, how do you... Ugh. My brain is hurting right now. Like, what?
I know. I've had a few dreams. Look, obviously, you don't remember your dreams as much as I do. I remember my dreams all the time. I recall still, I had a dream where I went to school. I was probably 16, 15, maybe 15 or 16. And I woke up, got ready for school, got on the bus, but it was that weird thing where you did it, but you don't remember it actually occurring.
Yeah, it's like when you're driving down the road and your mind drifts and it's kind of like you just wake up and you're in that moment again. But you're not asleep. It's weird.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying like in dreams, they just have that skip to I'm here. And everything else that happened, you know that it happened.
But you didn't do it.
But you didn't do it. But you're like, you just accept that it happened. It's like what happened in Inception where they're sitting in the French coffee place or whatever. I don't remember. But they're having coffee. And she's just talking to Leonardo DiCaprio. And then he's talking about this exact thing. And she's like, no, he says, what happened 5 minutes ago? And she's like, oh, well, we came here. And it's like she had no thing. And then all of a sudden the dream starts mixing up and she's like, oh, we're dreaming the whole time. Wow. But essentially it was that. I go to school and then I come back home and then everyone's on the bus. Everyone's being dropped off at home. And then I get home and then I go to bed.
So what about me? Where am I in this dream?
That's the thing. That's what I was going to say. Then I go to bed, but then I remember, like, once I got off the bus and I got in the house, nothing happened except I just went to bed and it was nighttime. And I never interacted with you. I never interacted with Dakota. I never interacted with anybody in my family. Only saw people on the bus. Not you, though. And then the people at school, I only went to like one class. But it was like skip to end of the day.
Dang, math class. Boom.
Yeah.
Hey, we're leaving. Got.
And like, all the time, I was just like, yep, this is where I'm at. This is what has happened today.
School.
But it was, I don't know how to describe it. It was so vivid that when I woke up, I thought I was asleep. No, I thought I was asleep. Like, I went to sleep in my dream, and I thought I was asleep when I woke up. Because...
Is that pitch black in your room? Like...
No, it was daytime, but, like, you know, you wake up, and for a split second, I was like, oh, am I dreaming now? Because I was just awake, about to go to sleep. So I must be asleep now, dreaming.
I mean,
but I wasn't.
Look, it's like that guy.
I spun my top.
He woke up and he kept doing that. You was in that repetitive thing where you wake up, you go to school, you do something, you come home. But it's skipping that part where you actually do something different. When you got home, you usually do something different, but you didn't. You went to bed. What happens when you always go to bed? You always do the same thing before you go to bed.
I woke up, and then I thought I was, yeah. It was.
Maybe
it was being stuck in a routine, I guess, is what gets you to having those kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I pride myself on never having a routine.
It's changing every day.
Yep. If you change it every day, you never have that dream. It's like, oh, I woke up. Cool.
All right, on to the next.
It happened in early 2000 when I was working at a juvenile detention center in a small town in Oklahoma as a corrections officer. I was working nights at the time and went to work at 9 p.m. This one night when I arrived for work, my supervisor looked confused and asked me what I was doing there. I said I worked tonight. And he said, but they said you called in a few hours ago saying that you were sick. I was a bit confused and said, it must have been someone else and they got the message wrong. After everyone else showed up for work that night, it was a bit more weird, but we carried on as usual and assigned everyone their places for the night. I went to work in the control room where I usually work. The control room is the center of the prison that has direct control over the cameras, doors, phones and everything. After I relieved the guard on duty and settled in for the night, I looked at the message that said I called in. It said that I had called at 6:50 and said that I had gotten sick while out cleaning up after the storm. There had been a storm the night before and it was a bit bad, but not anything that I had to go out to clean up. It was truly weird. The supervisor came into the control about that time. He was also a friend of mine outside work and we started talking about it, and how odd it was. I decided to call my wife at home and tell her about it while he was still sitting there. I picked up the phone and dialed. After 2 rings, a man picked up the phone and with a raspy voice said hello. I did not know what to say for a few seconds. I looked at the phone to make sure I dialed the right number, and I had. After a few seconds the person said hello? Again in the same raspy voice. I said hello. Who is this? This is Taylor. Who is this? The person said. My head started spinning because my name is Taylor also. I said in almost a scream, where is Ann? He said Ann's in bed. Who is this? I dropped the phone and told my supervisor to ring me out. I had to get home, and I took off towards the door. I could hear Dave pick up the phone behind me and say hello, followed soon after by what the f, rather loudly. I ran to my car and drove home faster than what was legal, my mind racing the entire time. I busted through the door and my wife was sitting watching TV and was shocked at me being home. I asked her who was there and she said no one has been here. After a rather long talk with my wife, I went to call the prison to tell them what was going on, but the phone was dead. I went back to work, and when I came in Dave was acting weird, and asked me, how the hell are you doing this? He told me that when I left, he picked up the phone and the person on the other end sounded like me. He kinda freaked out and hung up the phone. A minute later, as he could see my car leaving the parking lot, I had called back from home and asked what the f was going on. He said that I was a bit irate, and said I was sick and did not feel like playing these games, and was telling him to stop prank calling me, and hung up. After convincing him I had no idea what was going on, we went back to work. Later, I find out that the phone line for my area had been knocked down the night before by the storm. This is absolutely the strangest thing that has ever happened to me. Edit. Yes, I posted this on r/glitch in the matrix and r/no sleep 7 months ago. This means that a Taylor in some alternate universe got through to you, and then got fired for not calling in sick.
Okay, and that's
the end of it right there.
You can see some other stuff by this person.
So that one right there, though, bruh. Oh man, that's a whole thing. That's like all the other stories accumulating and making one thing. There was another person talking. His friend heard this person talking. He saw his same person.
He talked to himself.
Yeah. People, have you ever talked to yourself like that before? Look, like, imagine hearing your own voice coming back at you, saying something different. You know? Like, yeah. Oh, man.
They definitely saved best for last there. That's hitting me. If I was at some... he was a prison guard.
Yeah.
And I went to work and called myself.
Because they said that you called in sick.
Yeah. Because they said I called in sick. And then
in this scenario, your name is Taylor.
I can still be my own name.
Okay, Jonathan.
Okay. I go in there. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I say, I'm going to check this out. I'm going to call this number. And just, what did he do? He was going to call his wife.
Yeah. He's calling his wife.
To
assume this is his home
to
phone.
be like, he was going to be, I'm assuming he was going to call and be like, hey, I didn't call in sick, right? Did you call in for me or something? I'm assuming that's what he was going to ask or something.
He was calling to tell him it was a weird situation.
Yeah, exactly. She was going to be like, hey, oh, isn't this weird?
And then you pick it up, you call this number, and you hear yourself say hello.
With a raspy voice. Because you're sick.
Yeah.
So you get to hear
You hear
yourself.
yourself sick.
Yeah.
Glitches in the Matrix, guys.
They some scary stuff.
It's creepy. It's really creepy.
That is creepy. Maybe next time we'll do
Another type of creepy something.
maybe like somebody's creepy pasta or something.
Yeah.
We are on a journey to 100 subs. We got 44. We're
climbing.
up. We're climbing.
We're grinding.
We're almost halfway there.
Almost.
But as always, hit the like button if you enjoyed it. Tell us.
Yeah. What
If
is some creepy things you want us to look at?
Yeah, if there's something some video that you're like, you gotta watch.
You gotta check this out.
Let us know.
We'll try. We'll see what's up. We're not a react channel, but we'll do this.
Yeah, this is, it's Halloween.
Yeah,
So
you gotta get creepy.
maybe next time we'll read some creepy pastas.
Yeah, we'll try some other things. But as always, guys, stay tuned.
Stay excited.